The issues of the war in Yemen, Andrew and others have explained, are extremely serious in you care to look at it. We're in crisis anywhere in the world at the present time. Cholera is rife, poverty is rife, food stressed. Probably half of those numbers are actually literally going without sufficient, entirely of human making. It isn't a natural disaster, it's a political disaster, and one which other people have made an enormous amount of money out of. The sales of arms to Saudi Arabia and in the region over the past 10 years have been absolutely astronomical. I got some figures today by looking through the defense world to get the figures on it. And arms sales in the last 5 years to Saudi Arabia alone have totaled £60 billion. And other countries within the region that have also bought arms are even more than that. 130 billion has been sold, worth of arms has been sold to neighboring countries within the region. And those arms have been used to promote the war in Yemen, and the campaign around the world to try to stop this war is huge and significant. But unfortunately, the war has gone on. Thousands have lost their lives. Thousands of young people's lives have been stunted by this. Many have lost education, and the health prospects for many of those that have suffered all of this are huge. And the deaths will go on for years to come, even after a ceasefire, as landmines are discovered, and all the detritus of war will be found there. And so we have to then look at the effects on the poorest people in that country. They're the poorest people who suffer in every war, but there are also around 10,000 migrants per month that are expelled from Saudi Arabia and end up trying to make their way back home through Yemen, and they suffer as well as migrants trying to go the other way, because Yemen has always been an important jumping off point on that. And so the number of issues in the war, the number of fronts that are taking place all over, are huge. And the UN, Martin Griffiths, the UN peace envoy that's tried to bring about a ceasefire there, has tried very hard, very, very difficult to achieve it, because in reality, there's so much money being made from pumping arms sales into the region that the motor behind the war is actually international armaments interests as much as anything else. And the idea is, of course, to develop a proxy war with Iran by Saudi Arabia and Western forces within Yemen. I opposed the sale of arms to Saudi Arabia as leader of my party, and as Andrew pointed out, I suffered a great deal of criticism as a result of that. I don't mind the criticism, that's fine. I welcome the criticism in many ways, because it shows you must be doing the right thing with that kind of criticism that came along. But it also shows the power of the arms lobby within this country, because I was also making the point that in stopping arms sales to Saudi Arabia and reducing arms sales in general, that would have an effect, yes, on employment. And so there has to be a guarantee of those jobs, and there has to be an arms conversion program in this country as well as in other countries, because those skills could be put to doing far more useful things than making weapons that can only kill people in the war in Yemen. When the COVID crisis started at the beginning of this year, Antonio Guterres said that there should be a global ceasefire in all conflicts, and he had in particular the idea of a ceasefire in Yemen. And he said, with the COVID crisis, the last thing we need in this world is wars, except what we need is wars on disease and wars on poverty and wars on inequality. Sadly, the war didn't stop at that point, and it still hasn't completely stopped by any manner of means. In fact, in many ways, the situation is very, very bad indeed. So the pressure has to be on all governments. Now, the British government has always wanted to sell arms to Saudi Arabia. They were only prevented from the delivery of arms to Saudi Arabia by the heroic work of the campaign against the arms trade, and absolute congratulations, well done to them, and well done to the speakers from the campaign against arms trade earlier, Kirsten, who spoke so very well on this, because the British government wants to sell arms to Saudi Arabia. The last two US administrations were happy to do so. The Obama administration sold arms to Saudi Arabia, and the Trump administration big time. And indeed, they saw a political point in working with Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates and other countries. The initial noises from the Biden administration are, I think I'd be cautiously hopeful about, that they see the humanitarian disaster because of pressure that's put on them in Congress. And indeed, it was Trump that vetoed the bill that went through Congress about humanitarian needs of the people of Yemen. So I hope that's the case, but it does mean we've got to mobilize very rapidly internationally on this. And I'm very pleased that the Stop the War Coalition is hosting this very big event on Monday rather, in order to oppose arms sales. The other last point I want to make is this, and it's a more general one about the region. The issues of the rights of Palestinian people, the need for Israel to stop its settlement of the West Bank and to end the settlement policy and to end the siege of Gaza, are obviously absolutely central to an awful lot of things, just as central to so much is a reinvigoration of the Iran nuclear accord, so we can at least start on a process of disarmament of weapons of mass destruction that might be developed within the region and bring about a longer term peace. If we allow arms sales to go on to Saudi Arabia, which can then become a proxy for Western interests within the whole region, then the situation is very, very dangerous indeed. As a shorthand, people always talk about arms sales to Saudi Arabia as being the important thing. Yes, they are. But the figures I gave at the start of my contribution were that almost twice as much in arms sales has gone to other countries in the region, to Egypt, to UAE, to Morocco, and to many others, all of whom are part of the coalition of forces that are fighting in Yemen at the present time. So let's demand an end to the arms sales. Let's demand that the needs of the people of Yemen, urgent needs of food aid, of agricultural support, of medicines, of COVID vaccinations, and so much else are met immediately. And that we see this as the first test of the Biden administration. You can change course and turn around. And to the British government, I simply say this: don't wait for a court process to tell you what you should have done in the first place. And that is stop arming a government that is bombing the needs and lives of absolutely innocent people in Yemen. Let's bring about peace there, and that will help to bring about peace throughout the whole region.